Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation on Alibaba. I'm Audrey and I'll be presenting with Ashley, Kevin, Bennett, and Scott. Here's a brief overview of our agenda and what we'll be discussing today. So to begin with their background, Alibaba is a Chinese multinational technology company specializing in e-commerce, retail, internet, and technology, and it was founded in 1999. Today, Alibaba is China's biggest online commerce company, and it has three main sites, those being Taobao, Tmall, and Alibaba. To the right, I have a chart of Alibaba's revenue in million won from 2012 to 2022, and you can just see what a steep increase they have had. And their annual revenue for 2021 was 71.9 billion, which is huge and just shows their scale. So original objectives and company journey. So when the company first started in 1999, the goal was to facilitate the access of world markets to small businesses operating in China. And a quote from Jack Ma kind of summarizing that is to make it easy to do business everywhere, anywhere. And that's really what he did. Over time, three goals kind of emerged, and this kind of emerged with the rising competition and just the way that the e-commerce industry was changing. These goals, the first one being globalization, which is just really forward thinking. Small businesses, if they hope to succeed, need to go global. So that's huge. Big data and cloud computing. So Jack Ma kind of believed that the world was evolving from the IT era towards a new era of data technology. So he wanted to leverage that in his company. And then e-commerce in rural areas and really helping those rural communities with less opportunities to have business growth was another large goal. So did he succeed? Yes, Jack Ma succeeded. As the largest e-commerce site in China, Alibaba has made a huge impact on local business growth and success, and they've really reached so many people. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Taobao villages. So Taobao villages were identified if the number of households enlisted in either Taobao or Tmall was more than 100 or greater than 10% of the size of the village. And on the bottom, you see a photo of kind of how those were increasing. But basically, in the first 3 years, it created more than 840,000 direct job opportunities, which is huge and has a really big impact on those rural communities. And every active online store in the villages created 2.8 direct job opportunities. So you can see really just how influential Alibaba was on those rural communities with maybe less of an opportunity than others.
Moving on, we're going to look at Alibaba versus Amazon from a financial lens. This is because these two firms are often seen as competitors or compared as very similar in their operations. But it's important to note that Alibaba is not like Amazon exactly. This is mostly seen in the revenue, as you can see on the left graphic. Amazon's revenue far outpaces Alibaba at almost every business unit, including their e-commerce kind of core revenue stream. But this does lead to an interesting point, which is that their operating profit is more or less the same. This kind of ties into this graphic on the right, which looks at revenue growth rate year over year, and it shows how Alibaba's revenue has been aggressively increasing, other than in 2020 when the pandemic first started, and then in TTM, which refers to when China was still in lockdown, and the rest of the world was open for business. Moving on, Alibaba and Amazon have both engaged in kind of social sustainability. Alibaba has a program called Taobao Village, where they work with rural villages and their local businesses to promote their products to a wider market. They've also worked with the CCP on kind of these infrastructure projects, things like road building, warehouse building, logistics building, in order to make sure that these local businesses and local economies are more connected with the rest of kind of the Taobao ecosystem. Amazon has also engaged in similar kind of social sustainability efforts seen in their program of Catalyst Capital, in which they invest in a VC fund that looks at minority-owned businesses, things like Black-owned businesses, Asian American local businesses, women-owned businesses, and they invest money there. They also have a local business tool, which allows kind of consumers to filter out their Amazon browsing by local businesses. They also have investment in local infrastructure and logistics, seen in kind of local Amazon distribution center or Amazon delivery centers. Looking forward, both e-commerce, for both firms, e-commerce makes up a majority of the company revenue. For Amazon, it's 47%. Alibaba, it's about 69%. And both of these firms are kind of seen as the market leaders in their domestic market. So Alibaba is at 84% of the Chinese market, while Amazon is about 60% of the North American market. With that, in order to grow their revenue, both firms are going to have to look towards international markets, given that their business model is so heavily reliant on e-commerce and that their own kind of domestic markets are becoming very hard to compete in. With that, Alibaba has kind of looked towards India as one of its potential future investments.
To touch on Alibaba's expansion into India, we're answering the question, why is India an important market? Well, for one, it has a large and growing population of over 1.3 billion people, which acts as a huge potential customer base for e-commerce companies such as Alibaba to tap into. And with that said, there's also a huge rise in internet and smartphone users. As we can see in the graph, the amount of smartphone users is only increasing linearly, and as of 2020, India had more than 700 million internet users and more than 500 million smartphone users. Also, India is a very much untapped market. E-commerce sales are anticipated to reach $95 billion by 2023, which only accounts for 6% of the retail sales in the whole country, showing that the e-commerce industry is very much unpenetrated and a huge opportunity for Alibaba. How is Alibaba positioned to compete in India? Well, they have very solid technological foundations, which help them build a whole suite of different e-commerce and digital payment services, which act as synergy for the company as a whole, as they are able to reach different industries with their strong technological foundation. And this acts as a huge asset in a market like India, as the e-commerce landscape is evolving and has lots of room for innovation. They also have great brand recognition, which is very valuable when competing against established players such as Amazon and Flipkart, and can also help draw in new Indian customers as they're increasing their reputation for their high quality e-commerce services. How has Alibaba done in India in recent years? Well, they are struggling to compete with established competitors such as Amazon and Flipkart, as these two companies combined account for over 80% of e-commerce sales in India as of 2020. They are also struggling to combat regulatory difficulties in India, as there are many laws and regulations that have been in place, such as restrictions on foreign e-commerce companies, which limit their ability to offer deeper discounts and also own their own inventory, data localization rules, which ultimately has increased their compliance costs, ban on certain Chinese apps, e-commerce policy changes. All of these laws and regulations have limited and hindered their capacity to be able to successfully compete in the market. They have also continued to invest in various different companies across different industries, such as Paytm Mall, an e-commerce platform, Zomato, a ordering and delivering platform, Big Basket, a grocery delivery platform, and Snapdeal. As you can see here, they do have a lot of reach across different industries, which do vary from their different companies in China as well.
Moving on, Alibaba's country of origin advantage is strong due to China's transitional economy. Although it lacks control in certain areas, it has allowed for tech and internet businesses to grow quickly. Overall, coupled with China's strict government, commerce is now encouraged through sophisticated policies, which in turn advance technology and spur industry development. This setting has made it easy for Chinese individuals to access abundant products and pre-established dependable supply chains, which Alibaba was able to capitalize with its C2C and inclusive growth business models. In terms of where Alibaba is now, the conglomerate owns various tech and e-commerce companies, most notably and recently Ant Group, which is a finance company that competes with large-scale traditional banks by lending money to Chinese entrepreneurs. This eventually led to government intervention in Ma's businesses, and since then, various competitors have sprung up. Without Jack, the conglomerate and its companies continue to dominate China's tech sphere and remain a huge part of the country's future.
Great. And to wrap up this presentation, we wanted to give Alibaba some recommendations on how we think they can be successful in India. So our first recommendation is to use a similar approach as they did in China with the Taobao villages and adapt that to India. And part of that adapting process needs to consider that India is less technologically advanced than China, but we know that Alibaba is very technologically advanced, and we know that India, as you can see on the bottom right, is increasing in their population that has mobile connections and mobile phones. So we think that Alibaba can adapt to that and adapt to local Indian restrictions when it comes to mobile devices. And we also recommend Alibaba to continue investing in Indian businesses that can help them with their business development plans in India, because these local businesses, or maybe not local, but these businesses who are rooted in India have existing roots in local cities and villages, and can help Alibaba seem like a more local, a more friendly company rather than an outside Chinese company that's just coming to India to grab all the money. And then finally, for the sustainable approach, we think it's important that Alibaba mentions how much of a presence and how much of an importance they're going to bring to these local villages, so that they don't seem like, you know, an outsider, just Chinese company coming in to grab and steal all the market share. So we think that it's important that Alibaba discusses that they're going to bring jobs to these villages, and that communities that might not have a bunch of jobs, and individuals that may be, you know, marginalized or disabled, have an access to a job in which they can work on e-commerce through Alibaba. So we think that these are three important recommendations for Alibaba to consider. And yeah, thank you for listening.